What's up guys, Mark at HHR. So, track day didn't go too well. Tucked the front on the Beamer, first lap out. Probably a cold tire, but you know, warmers have been on for a while. But anyway, what we wanted to show you was it's important on the BMW. If you're gonna do track days, change your clip-ons. BMW just designed this thing with the clip-on attached to the top triple tree. The only reason we didn't do it, we're waiting on a couple of sets coming in to show you the differences in the height, because we ride this on the street as well. You go down, the stock clip-on will not break. So what it does is, if you look in here, it just puts all the pressure on the bar and it bends this clamp, which in turn breaks your fork tube. So we're dealing with a broken fork tube. We're gonna pull the fork. We got a new fork stanchion, we're gonna get that fixed. Got another set of forks temporarily we'll put in. But we wanted to show you, you know, for the case of changing out your clip-ons, this could have been avoided. So you can see that, like when you go down and you don't have clip-ons designed for racing, thanks to BMW engineering, that's gonna put all the force through that, snap your fork. You can see how it deformed this. It didn't break the throttle, thankfully it didn't break any of that stuff. Snapped the steering damper right off. So we're gonna be replacing that. We've got some carbon coming for the upper, so probably just gonna take all this off and get the steering damper replaced. We have another fork we're gonna put in just so we can kind of wheel this around. We've got two different types of clip-ons. We have the Bonamici clip-ons, which are raised higher, and then we have the extreme racing clip-ons, which those are pretty unique because they have a cam system, so you can change the degree of the actual bar. So we'll show you those too. This is like a little safety device here for your SOS system. So you have a Torx bolt that comes out, that pulls off. Then you have these safety bolts, which is a Torx T10 safety one. So pull this bracket off and then you'll be able to get to that lower bolt. All right, so we're gonna remove the brake. Okay, and that's your master cylinder broken loose. Next, we're gonna pull out this, which is also a T30. Okay, so keep this because you're gonna reuse that. All right, for your engine run kill switch, this is actually a T9 Torx. So you remove this tiny little bolt. Now, obviously, if this is on the bar, you have to make sure you have something small enough, but since we're changing the bars, we're taking it off the easy way. So, T9 screw, put that somewhere safe. And then this is actually comes apart. It's kind of fiddly. You have the throttle connection in the way, but this actually does split. So I just use a flat blade, pop it off here, you can see there, and then this will come out of the way. Okay. And then on the inside, you can see you're gonna have to pull these little connectors out of the way, and there is another small Torx below here. So you can see how like this is connected to your throttle, is pushed neatly in between here, so you don't want to break this. You want to try and get this out of the way, and there's your other screw. So there's your screw. So your second T9, take this off, All right, so we got that little T9 out, and now we can pull this away. Now what you're left with is your bolt that bolts the throttle housing. You can see it right here, sandwiches in. So we're lucky, like none of this broke, because these throttles are not cheap. Even the aftermarket, like the Alpha Racing throttle, you know, you're into it, nearly $1,000. So we're gonna pull this one out. This is also a Torx T15, Torx 15 on this one. I'm gonna pull this ball out. You're gonna have to re-drill this on your new clip-on. So you gotta make sure you get the clip-ons where you want them, mark it all out, decide which, you know, angle you want the clip-on tube. If you're going with the extreme, so that throttle just popped out. That bolt goes all the way through. So you can see it's a pretty solid tube, and it just bent, and I'm surprised it didn't bend the actual triple clamp here. So we'll take this bolt out, put it aside. All right, so we have two different clip-ons for you. So Extreme Components, made in Italy. These are like full-on race clip-ons. And then we have Bonamici. First, you might think that they're pretty much the same thing, but if you take a closer look at them, these Bonamicis have a higher raise on them. So when you're actually riding on the street, it's gonna put you in more of a, you know, a comfortable riding position. But they're also, you know, a race design clip-on. So these tubes are removable and come out. Now the Extreme is very different. What they actually do is they have like a channel that's you know, machined into the end of the tube, and this is a solid tube up here. And then they have like a cam system. And so what this allows you to do is actually achieve different height of the bar. So as you rotate it between the different degrees, you're gonna get a completely different feel on the bike. So you're gonna have more of an angle down on the bar, or you can bring it up and have, you know, a flatter bar. If I put it on the side of the table, you'll see better. So the clip-on is on the table. So that's just the flatter. I rotate this down, look how far. So that comes in and down, and then this is further down and out. So it really does give you a lot of adjustability on the bars. When you go for the Extreme, they come with the clamps required to clamp off the triple clamp, because when you remove the BMW ones, you know, the clip-on's actually molded into the side of it. So that's a good thing about Extreme. The Bonamici, you have to buy the clamp separate. You can actually use the Extreme ones, or you can use the BMW ones that we sell on the website, or you can use the Bonamici clamps, but they don't come with the clip-ons. So we'll take a closer look at the both of these installed on the fork when we put the fork back on. All right, so we're gonna go with the Extreme clamp. If you've purchased the Bonamici, go with that. If you've purchased the OEM BMW ones from us, go with that. So we're just gonna use the same bushing. So what we need to do is mark out on the clip-on the hole that secures the throttle. You can see obviously this clip-on's bent, but these clip-ons are now a different length, right? So you measure from the inside of the fork. You can see that the tube starts at 3/4 of an inch. Whereas this one, you're an inch and about 1.5 inches. So you're not gonna get the throttle in the exact same place. It's gonna be a little wider because you still have to account for your space for your mode switch and then your brake master cylinder. So you get your brake master cylinder. So you're gonna have your brake master cylinder, mode switch, or your run kill switch, and then your throttle. So if you look at this bar, The actual bar size is about 8.5 inches long, whereas this one is 9 inches. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure where the hole is. Bear in mind this is bent, so it's going to be slightly off, about 2.5 inches. So what we can do is we can put some tape around this at about 2.5 inches in that area, and then we're going to mark it. We're going to kind of go over to the bike, slide the tube on, see where it lines up, because also you can see that the angle, this is drilled on the side, so we need to find that angle. Maybe somewhere in there. We'll take this over to the bike. So obviously you can take this throttle off the bike, but you have to get up under the airbox and disconnect it. You know, if you're changing a clip-on out the track, you might not want to do that. You might just want to pull this off and slide this off. Since we're changing the fork anyway, we had the triple clamp, you know, loose. So, but you can't put your clip-on tube on and then put your throttle on. You have to take the triple clamp off, slide this in, and then slide it on. But this kind of helps us get to the position we need the throttle to be at. We're also not going to be using the Bonamici brake lever guard. We're going to be using the Extreme. So this has its own system for these clip-ons. So we're going to unscrew the adapter that comes with the Bonamici. This would just be so you could use your bar ends. They sell other adapters for the Bonamici brake lever guards, but that would just, with an Allen, tighten up, and then you can screw in your bar end. But with these, you're just going to figure out which size you need. They've got two. It comes with a bag actually of different adjusters to tighten, so figure out what bar size you need. So I fitted the Extreme lever guard, and it just gives me an idea of where the throttle is. Also, we don't want to just pull the throttle down toward the end. We want to see where it stacks up, where our markings were. And you can see this is the part of the throttle that has the screw nut on the back of it. So we're going to be drilling down through here and screwing into the back. So we are right in the vicinity that we need to be in. So we can kind of put this on here to get an idea of where that lives, and then you can put your brake master cylinder on. So we put the bracket on for the SOS device because it is a street bike. We want to keep that. We just want to make sure that it's going to fit on where we have it, because remember there is still a wiring harness attached to it, and we want to make sure that the throttle can also reach. So we may need to push the throttle up a little bit closer. So what I want to do here is show you, kind of need to plug it back in, right? Because here's your wiring harness coming through. We want to make sure we can fit it. It's not too taut. So that's where that plugs in. Because I can feel it getting tight when you put it over. So now you're going to put this over, lock it into the throttle. Now I can pull it down into place, and I can see how much free play I have. So let me position this camera. All right, so here you can see this is where it plugs in. So we plugged in, the mode switch is connected down to the throttle where it needs to be. And now we can either move it up or we can slide it down. When we slide it down, what we're looking for is this harness to see whether it tightens up, whether we have the space for it or not. Okay, this is the tricky part because there's no way to get a punch, or my punch, up through that hole. So I've made marks here and on the other side where this bracket meets up. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna use a tool to score this. So we're going to score the tape. So now I've got everything back off, pull the clip-on off, and I have my marks on here. And when I pull the tube out, I can see where I marked the tube. So we're going to take that over, we're going to do a center punch, and then we're going to drill this out. So once you got your throttle on, put your Torx bolt through and tighten it. Don't over tighten it. We just use a little screwdriver with a Torx bit in there. And then once you got that done, you're going to get your mode switch, and then you're going to plug that in. So remember your wiring harness here. This is where it gets a little bit tricky. So you want to plug this in first. So that's plugged in. So then you're going to plug this one in. Let's make sure it's latched. And that pulls around the front. Now you're going to pull this over. Okay, so that's popped in there. Now this is where you're going to take your Torx T9 with your 2 small screws, and you're going to screw 1 screw in before you put the bottom cover on. All right, so I took the clip-on off, turned upside down so you can get a good look at this. That's one of the holes. That's how you screw it to the upper. And you can kind of see the kink in this cable where it's been pushed around. And then this little clip right here goes into the little square right here. And then when you put your bottom cover on, then there's the other screw hole. All right, so there's your T9 Torx. It's going to go in this one. So the first screw, see it down in there, screwed in. And now you're going to put this clip back in its place. So you pop that clip back in its place and it sits just like that. So this wire's folding out. And then you can put the back cover on. So with this cover, you got to get it up past the throttle plug, which is not removable. And then you want to try and get your rubber cable, the rubber boot, in the little recess for it. And then clicks together. Then you're going to grab your other Torx bolt, your T9, and screw that up in. So we got everything buttoned up. We got our extreme brake lever guard on. Everything's mounted back up. And that is how to fix a broken clip-on.